Everyone here tonight, fellows, our mentors, and our guest, Stephen Brockman. Great to see everyone on time. This is our last session before winter break. We won't be seeing each other for about a month. And first of all, I want to let you know we really appreciate the effort you put in the homework. It's not easy, but as you're going to learn here, and I'm sure you're learning in school as well, but here, more importantly, we're learning about leadership, is that good things don't come easy. If you put in your effort into the right places, the rewards that you get are incredible, and that's what separates the leaders from the rest of the crowd. So we appreciate all the time you put in, and I know you're juggling a lot of things, but just remember this: if you plan it well, the 2-3 hours you put in for the homework, you spread it out over time, you can do it in the best way and be ready to get as much as you can. So today, the focus is on communication, and we're going to start off with our guest speaker. We're very privileged to have with us Stephen Bronfman, very well-known name here in Montreal, the executive chairman of Clara Jink. But Stephen comes from a very important family here in Canada and Montreal, third generation of success in business, leadership, social causes. Stephen himself is a visionary business leader, social entrepreneur, and philanthropist. Claridge, I think I want to mention, has the entrepreneurial spirit of the family, but very important, especially for us as Jews, is that a big focus here in Canada and in Israel. Always a leader in business in Israel and taking steps way ahead of many other business corporations and large companies, which is very heartwarming. Stephen has been in the papers a lot lately, trying to bring baseball and bring up the level of the city of Montreal, more world class. I wish you lots of success in making it happen. Stephen has sustained tremendous philanthropic commitment throughout his life, even from youth, and now through the Claudine and Stephen Bronfman Foundation, Family Foundation, has done tremendous work in the Montreal community, in the Jewish community and beyond, sitting on the board of many nonprofits, leading fundraising campaigns which have brought in well over $100 million to Quebec and Canadian charities. He's a leader in all senses of the word, and as we are here tonight to understand the qualities of leadership and how to build up a life of success and leadership to affect so many people positively, so let's give our attention to Stephen.
I think the lucky people are some of us that get to learn every day, and we learn new things, and I know today's talk is more about communications, but it's also about leadership. And when I was in your shoes, which was quite a while ago, I'm 58, so let's go back like 40 years, maybe even more. I mean, growing up in the Bronfman family as a kid, it was kind of interesting. You kind of want to fit in, but you're a bit different. It was a little daunting because, I had a grandfather who built a major industry, a company called Seabrook that was worldwide. My dad was working there. My uncle was in New York running the business there. He was also chairman of the World Jewish Congress. My dad was president of the Federation here. I mean, these were big shoes to fill. And it was scary for me. And I didn't have, as a kid, I didn't have that much focus. So my dad was amazing because he never really pushed me one way or another. But he said, son, you know, I think life is about choice, but he said, wherever you end up and whatever you end up doing, just make a promise to yourself that you'll do the best you can do. And it was great advice, but it was also a bit difficult. And when I started, I went to Williams College, which is a great liberal arts school in Massachusetts, when I was 18 as a freshman. I got there, and a lot of my peers were from the East Coast Prep School society, and they were very organized. And a lot of the kids at that age were, you know, one kid wanted to be a doctor, one kid wanted to be a lawyer, one kid wanted to be, and I was like, wow, I don't know what I want to be. I had no clue. I had no clue what I wanted to be, and that was troubling for me because I saw my family and everybody so directed, and my evolution took time. But I think where I was lucky was that I had great family leadership to look up to and to learn from. So I saw, I mean, there's this kind of thing of osmosis, right? You kind of just take it in. So I was very lucky to grow up in this sort of family setting with my grandfather, my father, my family doing so much, not just in business, but in community. And I was telling, I gave a talk because I won, it was a big honor this year. I won the 50th anniversary of the Sam Bronfman Medal, which is in the Jewish community here in Montreal, is the highest sort of community service award you can do. And my dad just turned 90, and he was here. It was like a real tearjerker for me. You know, it was my grandfather's medal, my father turned 90, I'm getting it 50 years after the fact. And it was really, really heartwarming. But, you know, you start to understand the levels of, you know, the importance of tradition, right? So there I was standing there and I was talking to everyone, and it was kind of otherworldly because I realized that over time I grew into this position and I sort of embraced it, where maybe as a younger person I was hesitant, I was a little nervous. How could I, you know, do what they've done? And I guess through perseverance, just kind of put my head down and I went through things, but I sort of learned my way. And then, you know, I started to slowly get into business and I started to have my own successes. But I think what my dad let me understand was to have choice. And so my choice was maybe a little bit different and maybe making mistakes on my own, but trying things. And so I guess the family history of entrepreneurship kind of led me to explore and to do different things. And so I got involved in business, but I didn't get involved in the family business. I got involved in the investment company and I started to do some deals, and I started to do some deals on my own. And I think, you know, I never went to further education, so I didn't do an MBA, I didn't do a law degree. And so, you know, my accounting, my number skills were a little bit light, but I was a sports person growing up, so I learned a lot from sort of the teamwork aspect of life. And I started to realize, I was like, wait a second, I can bring something to the table because I have certain skills and I'm good at certain things. Yeah, maybe I'm not the best analyst and maybe I'm not the best legal mind, but we have a team and we can all do this together. So that took a bit of pressure off. And I started to understand, and I started to be able to work with my teams and start to direct people and start to do deals and start to have a lot of fun. And so when you're talking about communications, this is quite funny because the first big business deal that I ever did was I led a group that bought TSN and RDS and the Discovery Channel, which was about communications at the time. And it was in the television business, it was in the sports business, it was very focused, and it was very concentrated in specialty television. And so I started to say, well, you know, here's a very interesting situation. I showed my dad, but my original theory was, well, I'll get involved in a business that's broken down, and I'll help rebuild it, and I'll learn a lot. And so then I had this opportunity, and I went to my dad, and I said, well, what do you think of this? He goes, well, that's not exactly what you were talking about. This is a much bigger business. It's not broken. Why would this be an important thing to do? I said, well, this is a leader in its field. It's in an area that I'm passionate in, which was sport. I grew up with sport. My dad brought baseball to Montreal, to Canada. And anyways, he kind of gave me the nod of approval, and we had great success. Ran it for 6 years. We sold it to CTV, and that was kind of the beginning of me learning sort of big business and having some success. But I want to focus really more on communications and taking risk. So most of my life has really been based on not really following the traditional sort of corporate model, but taking risk. And so I'd say, 30 years ago, I joined with David Suzuki and the David Suzuki Foundation because I was passionate about that. And I knew that my dad was really focused on more sort of Jewish-related, Israel-related issues. And I was like, yeah, that's fine. And I identify and I'm very much committed to that. But I have my own likes as well. And so when we actually sold TSN business, I took 15% of those proceeds and started my own foundation and got involved in environmental issues. And when you talk about communications, it's funny because just before I came here, I was on a Zoom call with David Suzuki's daughter, 7, who now runs our foundation. And what's David good at? David is a scientist who communicates to everybody. He is able to take complicated issues and bring them down and make them acceptable and understandable by anyone. And he's a fascinating guy. And so I've learned a lot from him. I've also, 10 years ago, got asked by Justin Trudeau if I would run his fundraising. And I do a lot of fundraising. And Justin and I get along well because we're both quite similar in leadership, where his father was Prime Minister, and he grew up surrounded by politics and surrounded by politicians. So here's a guy, he's 10 years or so younger than I am, but he's very comfortable with the guy on the street or Benjamin Netanyahu or Angela Merkel. Because he's grown up with that. And I'm very similar, where I've kind of grown up how I am. I'm very comfortable with people, but I'm also very comfortable with leaders in business or politics because I've kind of grown up that way. So it's very interesting. So he asked me to run his fundraising. And, I'm not a politician. What do I know from politics? But I know how to raise some money, and I know how to, I'm not shameful. I pick up the phone and I call and I ask. You don't ask, you don't get. And so I started to do that, and that was quite a risk because at the time, actually it's very interesting, because at the time the Jewish community and the business community were on my back, because at the time Stephen Harper, who was the Prime Minister then, he was very pro-Israel. And Trudeau, his brother made this film on Janine, and people were not very supportive of Justin. The business community not supportive. So what I did, this was very interesting. I took Justin in front of the Machers of the Montreal community and the Jewish leadership also of the Toronto community. And we were in Toronto, and I'll never forget, we spent an hour and a half, open Q&A. And at the end of the discussion in Toronto, there was a woman at the back of the room, and she said, Justin, she said, why do you care about us, the Jews? Why do you care about us? We represent so little in your constituency. We don't really have much influence in your politics and your voting. Why do you care about us? And he did not bat an eye. And this is when I knew I was doing the right thing. He looked at the room without batting an eye. He said, you know why I care? He said, because in every great city that I've ever been, at its core is a strong Jewish community that teaches the other communities the importance of work ethic, the importance of family, the importance of leadership, of togetherness. He said, and that's why I care. And it was a real moment. I had the hairs were standing up on the back of my neck, and I was happy for myself. He said, I did the right thing. And it's funny too, because when we went into the first election in 2015, it was a long shot, and we won this election, and it was really a powerful moment. So you talk about leadership, you talk about communications, you talk about taking risk, and here was a moment where I really put my neck on the line. I really believed in it. I really believed I was doing the right thing, And lo and behold, we win the election. I go to the office the next day. It was a late night. We were out. We were like all together at the Queen Elizabeth Hotel there. 3 in the morning, I went home. And with my friend Jimmy Alexander, we had a scotch. We're sitting down. We're watching the news. We can't believe what happened. I probably slept 2-3 hours. I went to the office the next morning. I was so overwhelmed. Like I couldn't even look at my phone all night. I got to the office and I started to read some of the emails that came from people. And I had this really powerful moment. I had tears started welling in my eyes. I didn't even realize the amount of pressure that was on my back and to have this victory. Anyway, so it was an amazing moment. And it's been a great learning. Like I'm a business guy, what do I know from politics? I'm a volunteer, right? But I get to be in the inner circle of a political party. So here I am, I get to learn so much. And you talk about communications. That business is all about, politics. It's communication. So baseball, you mentioned baseball. I was with the mayor today. I went to, we haven't met for a while. And we're very, very close to getting this deal done. And what's very fascinating about trying to bring a baseball team back to Montreal is that it's so multifaceted. There's politics involved, there's business involved, but there's the communications part. And the communications part is almost as, if not more important than everything else, because we're introducing a new concept. Like we've got this fakakta idea of taking a partnership with a sister city, having another city be a partner with us, having half the games played in Tampa, right? They'll have spring training until sort of early June, and then they're going to move their families. They're going to come here at the end of the school year. They're going to come. They're going to take their families here and play baseball here. The summer's tide in Montreal. It's beautiful. It's a fantastic concept, but it takes communications to get the notions through all the population. It's not simple. And so where we've had the benefit of time of building this business plan and really getting things going, and we've been working on it for years. Once a shovel goes in the ground, God willing, it's going to happen this summer. We're going to get a shovel in the ground. It's going to take 3 years to build this stadium, right? But over this 3-year time, we have, again, the luxury of time of communicating with the general public about what it is that we're doing, how it's going to be successful. I mean, one thing, I don't know if any of you are interested in baseball at all, but the Tampa Bay Rays, which is run by Stu Sternberg and Matt Silverman, some good Jewish boys that know a lot, and they're so smart, and they're wonderful people. We have a great partnership. These guys run one of the best businesses in that league. Very little money. They're in the playoffs all the time. They were in the World Series 2 years ago. I mean, these guys are geniuses. And they're mentions, so it's really close, it's really exciting. And why am I so excited about it? It's not really from a business perspective. Baseball, it's not going to generate, like if I want to take money and put it in and really make money, I'm not going to invest in this project, but it's for community. It's for bringing people together. And I just want to end before we have our own conversation and say that, where I've been fortunate in life, sure, I'm involved in business, but half of the time, I'm involved in community. And what I understand is people, and the importance of bringing people together. Why do I love sport? Sport crosses all boundaries. It crosses all races, all religions. It brings people together. When times are tough, we got this COVID, we got this and that. We've got a lousy hockey team, so people aren't really bonding over hockey these days. But sport takes you out of your everyday. It gives you a couple hours of something different. It gives you some stats. It gives you other things. So, I think it's all about community. It's about getting involved in your community. And that's where I've been fortunate too, is, running campaigns, working with, and listen, I think it's very important too to build bridges, right? So working with our Jewish community, which I do tons of, but at the same time I ran the Centre campaign. And the Centre does amazing work. And Federation CJ invests in Centre. The Centre takes care of poverty all over the city. Just as Federation of Chabad does with with our Jewish community. So I think it's really important, and I like playing that role of trying to bridge the gap. Moi, je parle très bien français, je travaille souvent en français. So, écoute, si on va bâtir un pays ici à Montréal, il faut faire dans les deux langues. Et souvent, ici à Montréal, moi je parle tout le temps, il faut créer des ponts. Pour créer des ponts, il faut éduquer notre population. S'il veut rester ici, travailler ici, il faut travailler en français. And that's one of the issues that I have sometimes with community, because, you know, Montreal Federation had its 100th anniversary, but a wonderful history. Et si on va avoir un autre centenaire, il faut faire ça dans les deux langues, or else we'll be stuck. So, you know, I think there's a lot to be done. You guys are proving to a lot of people that you're young, you're working hard, you got your exams, you're here, you're doing other stuff, you're learning from these great mentors, you're with the rabbi. It's wonderful. There's tons that you can do, and don't be shy and don't be scared, because there's so much opportunity, and people are looking for leaders. And I think in these strange times that we're in these dark, weird days where we think we're getting out of this, now this new thing is coming, people are like, and there's all this violence, what's happening in the States, like, you know, it's tough times, there's racism, there's all kinds of problems, and I think this is the time where people are really looking for positivity and for leadership. So thank you, Rabbi, for having me. I can go on and on, I have so many stories, but I know we have time limits, so it's better that we have a kibbutz together. So does anyone want to? But it's really, I'm really thankful for you to have me here. I love talking to you. Listen, I have my kids at the stage, they don't listen to me for very long. So thank you for your patience.
We appreciate you coming out. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage, ask questions, because we're not only talking to a business leader, a community leader, but it's generational leaders, the center of the Montreal community. So feel free and open to ask questions.
Yeah,
who wants to start?
We've got a sports guy.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Well, I know like it's been a long time for like baseball for like the Expos to come back.
Yeah.
How hard has it been for like you and like your team, I'm guessing, to bring it back?
It's very complicated, right? So when I went to Major League Baseball originally and said, you know, we'd love to, you know, see if there's something that we can do. And the commissioner said, well, you know, I know that Stewart is struggling in Tampa. Maybe you should get in touch with him. And so I did start talking to Stewart, and Stewart said, no, I'm not interested in moving the team or selling the team. But he said, but what would you think of maybe doing business together? This took a couple of meetings, and so that it took a while to develop this concept. It's not easy to grasp, but it does make sense. So in baseball has 162 games. Okay, there's 81 home games. It's very easy to sell 81 home games in big AAA markets. It's easy to do it in New York, in Los Angeles, in Chicago. It's not so easy to do it in smaller markets in Kansas City, in Cleveland, in places like that, in Montreal. Montreal struggled. But the notion of de-risking it and having a sort of half and half, Canadians sell 40 games, basketball is 40 home games. What's wrong with baseball being 40 home games? Then there's scarcity in the market. And what's so cool to me about this concept is that you're in the American League East, and the people that you're playing against are the New York Yankees, the Boston Red Sox, the Toronto Blue Jays. Everybody's around. So what does that do? It creates these amazing rivalries, and now you have back to rivalry in Canada as well, and you have tourism. I mean, so when you talk to the government officials, they get it too, because they see the potential for the city. And the timing is really amazing as well, because look at, our city going into COVID was really great. Our city coming out of COVID is really not great, right? Downtown is rough. Like I go downtown every day. It's empty, it's dirty, it's better than it was, but it's, and we're in a period too where Montreal was a very safe town. It's less safe these days. Like I don't love when my kids are like going all over, like there's gangs, there's guns, there's drugs. It's like, it's tough out there, you know? So again, I think sport, not only does it bring people together, it gives a bit of a safe haven, you know, and it gives some excitement. And I think Montreal is a great city, and, you know, we have a hockey team, you know, a baseball team, we always did, and it was always great. So we're working hard, and we're pretty close. Today was a cool day. Today I was, this morning, from 9:30 to 10:30, I was with the mayor, did a little press scrub, so there's been some press today. And I think, listen, we're Q1 22, so the first quarter it's going to happen. So I'm pretty bullish, and we'll do some real press, and we'll get everyone excited with this. Thanks for your question.
Heard it first. Who's next?
Yeah.
So I'm intrigued by the different ventures that you went into that were based on passion and business or values, and you've had so many different opportunities, community and business. How do you choose? How do you choose when so much is being asked of you, so many things are being presented to you?
Yeah, I think where I've been lucky and maybe learned from my dad, or maybe born with it, a lot of it, it's kind of this fine line of gut and analytics, right? It's like, it's that in between, and maybe those are the things that maybe are less learned and are just inside you. So you know, I've been very fortunate in my life where in business, I haven't had to just choose a business because it's just a business. It's a business that I understand, that I like. You know, I think the fortunate people in the world are the people that get to do what they're passionate about, and for sure they're going to do a better job. You know, look at you guys. You're here. Look at Rob. He's doing what he feels he's driven to do, right? So it's like this inner calling, right? You kind of follow what you feel. It's sort of a mixture of values, interest, and passion, right? So it's like this in between, and it's funny too because, like on the philanthropy side, less on the business side, but on the philanthropy side, when everybody's coming from every angle, yeah, at the beginning it's not easy to say no. There's so many causes. I mean, if you have the opportunity to do good, you want to do as much good as you can. And what I learned from my dad is about philanthropy, it's really like business. So it's venture philanthropy. You're taking risks. You're going out there. Maybe you're starting an organization, or you're investing in a project, and at the end of the day, what's it for? It's to do good, it's to inspire, it's to motivate, it's to get people off the streets, it's to get people educated. What are we trying to do? What's my goal in life? My goal is to make society a little bit better. We have one pass, we have one try. I'm 58 years old, you know, I've got another 30 good years of making it. My dad's 90, he's doing it every day. He's a huge hero of mine. God willing, I'll have his health, and I'll have his settle, right, and be able to carry on. Because, you know, he's made a mark. My dad started Birthright. I don't know if you guys have heard of Birthright. I mean, listen, he and Michael Steinhardt, between the two of them and the Israeli government and other philanthropists, they brought 800,000 Jewish young people to Israel on free 10-day trips. I mean, it's unbelievable. I'm working with Birthright now because they're honoring my dad for his 90th, and we have a big event in New York in May. Obviously, it's been pushed back 3 times because of this bloody pandemic. But, you know, we're raising money and we're raising awareness. And it's interesting, too, because after 800,000 Jewish people have gone, and with COVID, there's a little bit of fatigue. You know, they've got to get marketing. They've got to get that bull back on the horn. But there was some very good news that came out of the Israeli government today or yesterday, is that they've given a special exemption to a Birthright, and they're treating kids coming on Birthright trips as they would treat Israelis. So they're making it much easier for kids. So already, from now to the end of February, they've already got 10 full buses confirmed. So it's starting to re-happen, which is really great. And again, my dad, I mean, unbelievable. He is living on a world stage, and so he's my idol. You know, how can I follow in his footsteps? Yeah.
So I've known you since I'm like a little kid, and thank you so much for being here, and you've been very influential in my life. You respond right away all the time to people. I know that from a lot of people, and no matter how busy So that's an amazing thing. I wanted to ask you, I've never asked you, your whole family seems to be in the States. What kept you here in Montreal?
Yeah, that's a good question. My whole family really is pretty much American. Even on my mom's side, my mom was from New York. Edgar grew up running Seagram since he was in his 20s. He lived in New York, so all my cousins are American. But you know what, I'm kind of like a bit old-fashioned, and the tradition of our family here in Montreal is really, really powerful. You know, my grandfather, on my mother's side, they were Germans. They were German Jews that escaped before the wars. So they were in New York. And they actually, my mother's family was very interesting. They assimilated. And I was the first person in my mother, the Bearwolf family, to actually have a bar mitzvah, because they were so ashamed of their Judaism in New York. They just wanted to assimilate and be part of society and to heck with everything else. On my grandfather's side, they came from southern Russia. They came to Saskatchewan. They were farmers. They lost everything. They were selling wood chips door to door. I mean, they were as poor gets. And, you know, one story leads to another. My grandfather got into the hotel business, and he sold some liquor in the bar, and he said, oh, the bar does better than a hotel. And he looked for business. He found Joseph E. Seagram in Waterloo, Ontario, and eventually moved to Montreal. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing, because my grandfather and my grandparents had 4 kids, and they raised their 4 kids at 15 Belvedere Road in Westmount. I lived in 15 Belvedere Road in Westmount. I have 4 kids. I'm kind of repeating, or trying to repeat that story, and it's just been quite organic and quite beautiful. So much so that when we rebuilt the house, and my dad came into the house for the first time, and he goes up to his old room. And his old room is my third child, Olivia's room. And he goes to the sort of opening of the door, and Olivia at the time is like this big. And Dad looks at Olivia and he goes, you know, Olivia, this was my room. And she looks up at him, she's like, but Pops, it's pink. It's very cute. But you know, there's that tradition. There's the tradition. And you know what? When I went to Williams College, I was 18, I came back, I was 22. But I learned to appreciate my Canadian side. Like, I'm half and half, right? But I really felt like by my formative years in the States, I really kind of understood what it was to be Canadian. And the time of living here, I really sort of understood the traditional community that we have here, the bond that the Montreal Jewish community is a very special community. And in the States, all my family, they live here, they live there, they go here, they go there. Nothing wrong with it. But they don't have the same sort of traditional values that we do. We're a little old-fashioned, but it's okay. I kind of like that. And there's familiarity, and I like that too. So it's been an honor to represent, you know, to try and fill those shoes, to continue the family legacy in Montreal, in Quebec, in Canada, giving back, and again, just continuing that legacy that I guess I learned through osmosis, through watching my grandfather and my father do such an amazing job, and it's like a super wicked honor to be trying to do the same kind of thing. Yeah.
So I'm a person, as maybe you know, that I have a big passion for sports, all kinds of sports, and I understand that you've been able to like link your business with that. How do you recommend me, as in the future, to be able to do so in like other ways?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways. One, become a professional athlete. I think my son Sam would love to be, but he's not going to be. But I think he might be.
Going to the market?
Yeah, I went to like
Oh yeah, and what?
in soccer.
Oh, awesome. You know, my brother-in-law, who my sister married, he was an All-American soccer player, and he was also ranked 4th in the East at the 1600s in tennis. So he grew up as a really wicked athlete, and as he got into business, he actually ended up being owner of the Chicago Fire of MLS, and so they ran that business for 10 years. They sold it recently. And they did very well, but he was able to follow his passion, right? He was a sports guy. I grew up with baseball. I was a baseball player. I was a ski racer. The sport has been my life. And it kept me out of trouble pretty much as a kid too. It kept me focused, and I've been able again to link that up. So again, following passions, and maybe it's something you study in university. There's lots of courses about sports management. Maybe you go to law school and become an agent, because we're us Jews. We're good owners and we're good agents. We're maybe sort of less on the star side, But use what you got here, and use what you got here, and follow that, because it's really important. Cool, and good luck. Yeah.
I've heard you many times. It's always super interesting. There's always something that I didn't know. Above and beyond your family's implication, financial, in your time in philanthropy, you're also a very good ambassador for the Jewish community with the greater community of Montreal. Given that the theme is communication, can you speak how it's helped you, just that we're able to speak the same language, but culturally also try to have some sensitivity to the population at large, and how it's helped you?
Yeah, and what's also helped was, again, taking a risk, right? I got married later in life. I got married at 40 years old, and I didn't meet my now wife until I was 38. And I had a lot of girlfriends, and she was really probably the first girl, now you probably don't want me to say this, but I was dating a non-Jewish girl. And it was tough for me because I really fell in love with her. And, I was like, my parents have to deal with this and everything. But I followed my heart. I said, you know what, I love this girl. We're going to make it work. And I didn't have, it's funny because people wouldn't think this maybe of the Bronfman family. I didn't have much Jewish education at all. And, I did my bar mitzvah and everything, but we really didn't do much at all. So my wife did a conversion, Orthodox conversion. We don't live an Orthodox life, but we did that together. And it was such a bonding moment for the two of us. I learned so much. We did this together. It was beautiful. And we live a beautiful life together. But I think that side sort of gave me a lot of cred, like a lot of street cred in other communities, right? Because I have a lot of French-Canadian friends. But I grew up a little bit different, where as a kid, we always grew up in the Laurentians. I was on a ski racing team and I was on a baseball team in the summer. And most of my friends were French. So I grew up speaking much better French than most of my Jewish friends growing up. I really did. I didn't learn it so much in school, and maybe my grammar wasn't like amazing, but my French is pretty good just because of that, because of sort of growing up that way. So moi, je suis très à l'aise de parler avec tout le monde. So I guess maybe I've grown up a little outside of the shtetl a little bit, and I'm very happy at trying to bridge build, I guess, through community, through politics, and it's really important. Like, I'm doing a lot of work with the Musée d'Art Contemporain, and I'm doing work, in other communities, and I think that's really important for the other communities, because we're small in Montreal compared to other communities combined. We have to put a face out there. Jews, we always have to work harder. We have to work harder to earn respect, because people have a built-in distrust, a built-in, I don't know what it is, but jealousy. There's something. And one thing that's really beautiful is that all my French-Canadian friends that come to our bar mitzvahs, they come to our house, they, are doing Jewish holidays, they come. A lot of times we have friends for the weekend, we're doing Shabbat candles, and they all tell me, they said, you guys are so lucky. We don't have these traditions. We don't have these things that keep our families together. And another amazing thing, and you mentioned taking business to Israel, we brought the Caisse de dépôt, the big Quebec machine, to business in Israel. We're partners with the Caisse de dépôt in investments in Israel. Like, it feels amazing. So one thing that I started with my friend Mitch Garber and our two wives, and Mitch married also a French-Canadian woman who converted, as did I. We've been leading trips with CJA, and we take non-Jewish couples, leadership couples, either in politics, mainly in business, and we take them on 1 week immersive trips to Israel. And it's all their first times. And they're nervous, they're scared, they're like, and we take them everywhere. We do everything. We do politics, we do cultural, Mitch and I know so many business people would take them partying in Tel Aviv or in the, in Jerusalem, in the Machne Yehuda. We're doing such cool things, but we're also going to non-Jewish sites. We're going up to various, we're going, to Catholic section, yeah, we're doing an amazing week. And I'm telling you, at the end of that week, we do a download. We're usually about 20 of us, 22, 24. We sit around our last night, we have a schnapps, and the tears are flowing. People are so moved. They're so emotional. They didn't know anything. And what we're trying to do by doing these trips is we're trying to bring in new ambassadors for Israel. Because, listen, Israel's great at a lot of things. Jews are great at it, but we're not very good communicators. So maybe this communication, maybe you guys are going to be, because Israel doesn't tell a very good story. The media does a terrible story at telling our story. Maybe they don't want to tell the good news that we do. So we have to do that. And so we bring people there, and they become ambassadors, and they become our friends that are out there every day saying, no, no, no. These Jews are doing amazing things. Israel, amazing place, you got it. So, you know, it's like, it's heartwarming. It's hard work. But you don't get anything if you don't work, you know? If it's easy, it's not fun. If it's easy, it's easy, whatever, you know? When it's hard and you accomplish those kinds of things, there's no better feeling.
Any other? I'd like to just ask one thing. Growing up in a family that was very involved in charity giving, philanthropy, community, when you were young, were you, your father, your grandfather, were you educated in any way about what you should do then, instead of like one day you'll...
You know, I think my dad, again, he didn't rule with a very heavy hand. And I think we just observed, I used to joke with my sister, I think I told the story when I gave my speech for the 50th Senate Medal. We had a living room and we had an upstairs, and my dad and my parents used to have functions, you know, and my sister Ellen and I, we used to look over the railing and we'd just see all these bald heads, and we'd look at each other, another Jewish event, you know. I mean, we just grew up with it, right? And you saw that it was doing the right thing. And, you know, again, just remember the more moving things within the family were based around, you know, big events that had to do with Jewish issues. And that's kind of how the family grew up. And so those are the basis of the roots of the values. But then it's trying to take that and to spread that love, right? To spread the vibe amongst the other communities. They, you know, and there's a lot of good people out there. They just get to, you know, they just gotta learn more. And so we gotta play the role. We gotta be the teachers. We gotta be the educators, right? And we don't have to spend all our time talking to the converted. We talk to the people that need to be talked to because they need to hear the story. And that's a mission too. That's another mission we all undertake, right? Is trying to tell that story and trying to stand up for what you believe in. It's not easy sometimes, but again, easy is not fun. Hard is fun.
Thank you very much.
Very interesting subject, communication. And today's everything is all about communication. We have amazing fellows, amazing mentors, and we would like to hear from each one of the fellows after this fourth session. Something, any perception, any insight, something that you have taken with you in this. So no, I will go through every table and each one of you. Okay?
Okay, let's begin.
2 seconds, 1 minute.
Perfect. So we learned about communication, that it's important to take into account everyone's opinions, even though you don't agree with them, and to share your own opinions, and that communication is very important in being a leader because everyone will listen to you if you communicate to them and they believe in you, and the fact that you're relaying information to them, and yeah, that's
Okay.
Amazing. Great.
Stand up.
I think it's best to accept honest criticism, and also body language and tone of voice is very important, as well as asking questions and really like informing yourself about everything. Thank you.
Beautiful. Maybe the mentors would like to say something about. Why not?
Sure, why not? No, we had a nice little time discussing communication. We had a bit of a communication challenge because we have one participant who is on FaceTime, so that was a challenge in itself. But I think what the mentees appreciated is how when you're trying to convey a message or an idea, most of what the person is going to get is the body language, the chemistry, the intonation, the emotion. That is worth probably more than the actual content, and I think they're appreciating that. So it was
Beautiful.
The art of communication lies in the fact that it's not about the content of the message as much as it is about the body language and the way that the message is conveyed to somebody.
Okay, so we spoke a lot about like how it's always best to like communicate in person because that's when you could see someone's true intentions and you could like tell if they're being real or not, and also like you get a certain vibe from someone. And also like you have to be very careful like in business and just in general in life about like narcissists and people who like really have like they're really like extremists and they're gonna go to like extreme lengths to like achieve what they think, like to get the most money or to like I don't know, to like convince you to do something. So you have to be very careful about that, and you have to like know how to like, you have to like zoom out of the picture and yeah, try to see their real intentions.
That communication is truly, like your message is truly passed when you're authentic and your message matches with your body, and that communication isn't linear and has many factors, and you represent what you're saying.
I think it speaks for itself. These great kids really communicated beautifully the message that I think is essential in communication, which is caring about who you're speaking to. Caring, being authentic, but to really communicate, you have to have empathy for the person you're speaking to. You have to have a communication that is relevant to the audience. And we gave the example of empathy versus sympathy, where sympathy would be looking at somebody who fell in a hole and say, it looks really cold down there. Empathy would be getting down in the hole with them and understanding how they feel, not necessarily agreeing with them, but understanding how they feel and being authentic in the experience. So, and ultimately, that's a form of kindness. Communicating with kindness is probably the most effective way to get the message across.
Oh my god, this is like really in my eyes. Can I go like this?
It's okay, it's okay.
It's not going anywhere high.
Oh god.
So we learned today that communication, it's about listening to others mostly. Like you can use that information to better yourself and others, and also you have to, like for example, like not necessarily followers, but like the people who you're leading. You have to gain their trust and you have to gain their respect, because with that you'll be able to get some good feedback and you'll be able to communicate back and forth with them and better yourself, not only better yourself, but maybe your organization and also your followers in the world.
Be careful what you say because everything can be used against you. I learned that it's important for a leader to communicate with their team and to basically talk about their opinions and perspectives, because if not, a leader can make a wrong decision, which can lead to a downfall.
So, I mean, obviously I could talk about communication, but really what I do want to commend, and I'm sure I'll speak on behalf of the other mentors as well, is just the dedication and effort that the students, the mentees are putting into these exercises, both the homework before and obviously the discussions we've had now as we break for the holidays, or for the next 4 weeks, I guess, just to, again, just congratulate them for the work that they're doing and the effort that they're making.
We learned that as a leader, it's important to communicate together so that everybody shares equally, that everybody has a connection with each other. And you should also be forming trust and show that you care about and can help the people who you're communicating with, so that everybody really feels that they can listen to you and that they have a connection with you, so you can properly lead them.
We learned about the importance of being a leader and its position to helping its followers, and how being caring and helpful and trustworthy can go a long way.
We learned how texting and emojis don't really show, and you can't really communicate the message that you want to get across, and it inspired me to talk to a friend that I had problems with. Last week, after I did the homework, yeah, that's it.
I think communication has a lot to do with the mind, heart, and soul. And what's important in that context is understanding the people you're talking to and understanding yourself, and understanding that in the end, it's not only about you when you're talking, but how you're listening and receiving as well.
We talked about communication in general and how stories and humor can really attract an audience and make your story a lot more interesting if you just, instead of just standing there and talking. That's it. That's great.
Okay, so Mr. Mendel pointed out a quote, and it said, "At the core of community is communication, and at the core of communication is decency." And I really want to focus on the first part. So a community can be a bunch of things, a small group or a big group of people. And to build communication, you need to have a lot of trust with people. And you have to communicate with the people around you, especially in a workplace, to really, find solutions to problems and therefore, be a better workplace. And then that can really make a good community. And yeah.
You have to communicate whether or not you agree with the person. Asking questions is good because it makes them feel like you're really listening and important. And it would also put the conversation more in depth, and they will treat you the same when you communicate with them.
So we talked a lot about sort of the passion and understanding how valuable that is in effective communication. We talked about a lot of sort of the I guess similar to the first group, how the content is not as important as sort of the nonverbal pieces, which is sort of the passion and how much you show that you care about those around you, and try and sort of engage them and bring them into the process and show them how important they are. We talked a lot about getting really buy-in. The best way is to sort of to be kind and to be very open to other people's ideas. And that communication, you don't have to be the best speaker, but if you show your heart on your sleeve and show how much you care about the topic and about your audience, that it'll go a long way.
Just as I hand it over to Silvana, a few important things to communicate to us, the group, before we break for 4 weeks, that just think a minute. How many of you really knew before you read, you discussed, you heard how important it is, the nonverbal part of communication? How many of you really knew before that listening is more important than talking? Or that you have to be authentic. You can't package a deal and make a good speech and expect people to be moved. It's about authenticity. That's the beautiful thing that you're really picking up over here. So many, and you're learning from people live who have used it in their life to succeed. It's incredible. There's no value that could be placed on these things, because this is what's going to get you ahead in life in all ways.